Power is seductive, isn't it? It starts small. A little control here, a little influence there. Suddenly, you're the go-to guy, the authority, the alpha. People admire you, or fear you, close enough, right? But let's be honest. Power is like sugar, addictive, sweet at first, then rots everything it touches. Your peace, gone. Your sleep, replaced with strategy meetings and silent paranoia. Authenticity, replaced with performance. And love? People love your power, not you. You wanted freedom. But now you're trapped by the image of the powerful version of yourself. Can't show weakness. Can't slow down. Can't trust. Welcome to the throne, where everyone wants your crown, but no one sees the blood under it. But Carl Jung said it best: where power predominates, their love is lacking. Let's unpack what that really means. When Jung said, where power predominates, their love is lacking, he wasn't just talking about dictators or political regimes. He was talking about you, me, all of us. The moment power becomes the goal, relationships become transactions. Empathy is seen as weakness. Vulnerability becomes a threat. You stop connecting. You start managing. Jung's entire psychology warned us. When you chase external control and ignore your inner chaos, you're not growing, you're splitting. Because real power, it's not domination, it's integration of the self, of the shadow. But what happens when someone ignores this? Let's talk about one tragic example. Let's talk about Howard Hughes, once a symbol of innovation and wealth, a billionaire, aviator, Hollywood producer, an ultimate alpha. The man had it all, except peace. The more power he gained, the more isolated he became. He built empires but couldn't build trust. He locked himself in hotel rooms, refused to cut his nails, feared germs, feared people, feared losing control. Power, unchecked by self-awareness, didn't make him unstoppable. It made him untouchable in the most painful way possible. This is the cost of ignoring the inner world. Jung would call it shadow possession. Foucault would call it the prison of authority. Because when you pursue domination without introspection, you don't become a king. You become a prisoner in a kingdom of mirrors. Now, let's officially welcome to the human algorithm and show you what this video is truly about. The sanctuary where psychology meets philosophy and the human soul is stripped bare. Today, we're dissecting a subject that most people chase without ever understanding. Power. Not just political power, but the power in your workplace, in your relationships, in your social media presence, in your desperate attempt to stay in control of everything. Because here's the hard truth. Power is never given for free. It always takes something in return. Your authenticity, your mental peace, your ability to be loved instead of just admired. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. But no one listens until it's too late. Carl Jung tried to teach us that the more we chase external power, the more we ignore the shadows inside. And Plato, he believed only the philosopher, the one who knows themselves, is truly fit to lead. So today, I will guide you through the 5 psychological truths, the pillars of power that reveal not just how people gain influence, but how they lose themselves along the way. Each pillar is a step on a tightrope between leadership and tyranny, influence and obsession, clarity and madness. Ready to walk the line? Let's begin with the first and most dangerous pillar. Power rarely knocks. It whispers. It enters through small cracks in your routine. You want a little more influence at work, a little more say in your relationship, a little more certainty in a chaotic world. Sounds harmless, right? But here's the trap. The more you try to control, the more you lose control of yourself. Carl Jung called this inflation. When the ego swells to godlike proportions, you don't just want to be in charge. You start believing you have to be. You micromanage conversations. You rehearse outcomes. You read between texts that were never written. You stop living and start orchestrating. But control is a seductive liar. It promises peace but delivers anxiety. It promises strength but isolates you. And here's the paradox. The more you need control, the less powerful you actually are. Because true power is calm. It doesn't cling. It doesn't chase. It chooses. Nietzsche said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." But what if the tribe you're fighting is your own mind? You don't need to conquer the world. You need to stop letting your fear of chaos run your kingdom. Next, we uncover the second layer of the trap, which is Here's the paradox nobody talks about. You gain influence, but lose yourself. You shapeshift. You mirror. You adapt. Not because you're strategic, but because you're scared. Scared to be rejected, scared to say no. Scared that without the performance, there is no value. You become liked by everyone, but known by no one. Foucault warned us, power is not an institution and not a structure. It is the name we give to a complex strategic situation. And you're stuck in it, managing impressions like a PR campaign. Carl Jung would say you're living in your persona, the mask you wear to survive society, but wear it too long, and the mask wears you. You don't speak your truth. You calculate it. You don't live with intention. You perform for approval. You're not influential. You're just exhausted from pretending. And let's get one thing straight. If your influence requires you to abandon your identity, it's not influence. It's self-erasure. People might follow you, but they'll never feel you. They'll applaud the version of you that never truly existed. And this is where the corruption of power becomes fatal, not externally, but internally. Next up, the third fracture of false power is it starts with good intentions. You want to protect, guide, lead. But protection unchecked becomes possession. And before you realize it, you're not protecting people, you're controlling them. You tell yourself, I know what's best. I'm doing this for them. They'd fall apart without me. Sound noble? It's not. It's ego, dressed in hero's armor. Carl Jung saw this coming. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. You think you're saving them. But in reality, you're shadowboxing your own fear of losing significance. So you monitor, you hover, you say it's love. But love without freedom? That's just domination with a nicer label. You don't build trust. You install dependence. And the sickest part, they start to believe they need you to survive. That's not leadership. That's quiet tyranny. Plato warned us in the Republic. The heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior. But the heaviest penalty for ruling without self-awareness is that you slowly become the very tyrant you feared. You don't have to chain people to keep them close. If your power can't coexist with their freedom, you were never powerful to begin with. So ask yourself, are you leading people to safety or locking them in cages you call protection? Because the next level is even darker. Power starts as a tool, but for many, it morphs into a drug. The first taste, harmless, a little recognition, a few compliments, applause from the room, but then you start craving it, not as appreciation, but as proof of existence. You don't speak unless it'll get noticed. You don't post unless it'll get likes. You don't act unless there's a guaranteed return in admiration. You become addicted to external mirrors because you've forgotten what your internal reflection even looks like. Nietzsche once said, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." It's deep, because even self-hate gives you an identity. Validation becomes your IV drip. No applause. You flatline, no attention. You feel invisible. You perform not from purpose but for points. Carl Jung called this psychic prostitution, giving parts of yourself away, not for connection, but currency. And here's the soul-crushing part. The more validation you collect, the more insecure you become. Because now your value isn't real, it's rented. Foucault warned us about this power trap. Visibility is a trap. You're always seen, but never truly known. You design yourself around expectations. You shapeshift into what gets claps. But your soul, it's backstage, forgotten. You think you're growing. You're just getting louder, because when power is defined by attention, you'll always be at the mercy of the crowd. And the crowd, they're loyal to no one. So here's the brutal truth. Until you can sit in silence, unseen, and still feel worthy, you're not free. You're just a powerful puppet. Now, it's time to face the final darkest cost. Here's the final dark twist. The more power you gain, the more alone you become. At first, it's subtle. You've earned respect. You've built walls of influence around you. People come to you for guidance, for decisions, for answers. But then, slowly, you realize no one truly knows you anymore. They know the version of you they need, the one that gives them what they want, the one they've built around their own needs. You start to wonder, when was the last time anyone asked how I'm doing? When was the last time someone saw me? Not my title, not my power, but just me. Power makes people fear you. It's not about your wealth or your influence. It's that you become a symbol, a representation of what they need, what they want, and what they fear. But no one wants to connect with that. Foucault understood this. Where there is power, there is resistance. But here's the kicker. Resistance isn't always external. It's internal. It's the pull of your own isolation, the push of your own ambition, that leaves you stranded on top. You've isolated yourself from true connection. People surround you, but no one ever truly enters. You don't own power. It owns you. And at the top, surrounded by people who need you, you are alone. True power isn't defined by how many people need you. It's how few you need in return. So here's the final realization. The higher you climb, the more you have to sacrifice your humanity to stay there. But it's not too late. You can always turn back. That's the journey. Now let's take a look at the transformation, the change that can happen when you embrace true wisdom over false power. Here's the thing. When you finally break free from the illusions of power, you stop being a puppet. You stop playing the game of constant validation, domination, and manipulation. You stop performing and start living. It begins with a quiet realization. You don't need anyone's approval to be whole. The applause, it fades. The attention, it disappears. But what remains is you, unapologetically. powerfully and completely yourself. You stop seeking control over others, and instead, you embrace influence through authenticity. You begin to lead from a place of strength, not fear. No longer do you need to suppress your true self for the comfort of others. You give people the freedom to be themselves, and in return, you find connection that is real. The facade of protection and dominance crumbles. You no longer manipulate situations or relationships to create a false sense of safety. Instead, you set boundaries, create trust, and allow others to grow beside you, not beneath you, and that's the key. True power doesn't isolate. It brings you closer to others. Your influence grows not because you control, but because you empower. As you stop living for validation, you find peace, not the noise of constant praise, but a deep inner confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It's the quiet strength that speaks louder than words. This is the freedom of knowing you are enough, not because someone else says it, but because you finally, truly believe it yourself. You leave behind the empty echoes of external validation and step into a life filled with purpose, meaning, and real connection. And the transformation doesn't stop there. You grow, you evolve, you become the leader you were always meant to be, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. And that, my friend, is where true power lies. Are you ready to turn this into actionable modern clarity? Let's jump in. This is where the rubber meets the road. You've heard the wisdom, felt the weight of the journey, and now it's time to act. Here's the reality. Power, as we know it, is a construct. It's a construct designed to control, to isolate, and to manipulate. But you don't need it. The first step is disengagement. Start by detaching from the validation machine. Stop measuring your worth by likes, comments, and the applause of others. They don't define you. Your worth is defined by the authenticity of your actions, not the reflection in someone else's mirror. Next, take ownership of your boundaries. Don't let the world decide where your time, energy, and focus go. Be deliberate. Guard your peace. Say no without guilt. You're not here to be a tool for everyone else's needs. You're here to live your own purpose. Now, build relationships based on mutual respect and empowerment. Stop playing the game of control. Instead, empower those around you. Let them shine. When you do this, you'll see true influence, the kind that doesn't demand power, but commands respect naturally. Most importantly, silence the noise of external validation, the noise of comparison, the noise of endless ambition for power. In the stillness, you'll find clarity, confidence, and focus. Take these principles into the world. Live them, feel them, and when you do, you will no longer be at the mercy of external validation. You will be your own source of power, your own source of truth. When you no longer seek approval, you are unstoppable. You are free. You've traveled far on this journey, and here's the truth. The power you once sought to control others was always the very thing that kept you trapped. But true power doesn't come from dominance or manipulation. It comes from letting go. It comes from embracing who you really are and standing tall in your own truth. You stop needing anyone to validate you, and instead, you start living as the full version of yourself. This is what it means to be truly powerful. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you didn't need anyone's approval? What would your actions, your choices, and your relationships look like if you stopped chasing external validation? Freedom doesn't come from others. It comes from within. It comes from releasing the need to dominate and learning to empower instead. As Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why is your truth, your authenticity, and that is what will guide you. In the end, the greatest power you can possess is the freedom to be yourself, unapologetically, without the need for validation or approval from anyone. When you embrace this, you step into a new dimension of existence, one where power doesn't isolate. It connects, it liberates, and above all, it transforms. The darkness of false power fades, and in its place, you will shine brighter than ever before. That's your journey. Are you ready to embrace true power? Let the world see the real you. With that, this is your moment to step out of the shadows and into your own light.